The old Mercy Hospital stood shrouded in darkness, its once bustling halls now silent and foreboding. The air was thick with the smell of disinfectant and decay, a haunting reminder of the lives that had passed through its doors. The silence was broken only by the distant howling of dogs, their cries echoing through the empty corridors like lost souls. Jessica shivered, her breath misting in the cold night air. She pulled her coat tighter around her, trying to ward off the chill that seemed to seep from the very walls of the hospital. The building seemed to loom, its shadow stretching towards her like a grasping hand. It was as if the hospital itself was alive, watching her every move. This was her first night shift at Mercy Hospital. She had heard the stories, of course, the whispers among the staff about the strange occurrences that happened after dark. She was excited, but a little afraid. The thrill of the unknown tugged at her curiosity, but the fear of what she might find kept her on edge. She clutched her stethoscope tighter, the familiar weight of it a small comfort in the oppressive darkness. She felt a knot of unease in her stomach, a gnawing anxiety that she couldn't shake. Every creak of the floorboards, every flicker of the lights, set her nerves on edge. Why did they have to build hospitals to look so scary, she wondered, her mind racing with thoughts of ghost stories and horror movies. It was almost as if the building itself was unwell, its walls groaning under the weight of years of sorrow and pain. Jessica took a deep breath, steeling herself for the night ahead. She had a job to do, and no amount of fear would stop her from doing it. With a final glance at the looming structure, she stepped inside, ready to face whatever the night had in store. The night ward awaited her, and she was determined to uncover its secrets. Inside, the atmosphere was just as oppressive. The fluorescent lights hummed, casting an eerie glow on the peeling paint. Jessica checked in with a start. Clara, the senior nurse, was watching her with knowing eyes. "First night, eh?" Clara said, her voice gruff. "Don't let the quiet fool you. This place has a way of getting under your skin." Jessica nodded, trying to appear brave. "I've heard stories," she admitted. "About Ward 13. Clara's face hardened. "You stay away from there. You hear me? Some things are best left undisturbed." Jessica tried to focus on her duties, but Clara's warning echoed in her mind. Ward 13. Why was it always Ward 13? What was so special about that place? As the night wore on, the silence of the hospital became unbearable. It was punctuated by strange creaks and groans, each sound sending shivers down Jessica's spine. Once, she thought she heard whispers coming from the far end of the corridor, near Ward 13. It sounded like a mournful wail, full of sadness and pain. Jessica paused outside Ward 13. The door was old and heavy, with a rusted padlock securing it. A shiver ran down her spine. The whispers seemed louder now. Curiosity, that old devil, whispered in her ear. Just one peek. What could it hurt? She told herself it was just an old abandoned ward, probably filled with medical equipment or forgotten files. But deep down, a part of her knew it was more than that. Section 5. Spectral Sightings. Taking a deep breath, Jessica pushed open the door. The creak of the hinges echoed through the empty hallway, sending a shiver down her spine. She hesitated for a moment, her heart pounding in her chest, before stepping inside. The air inside was stale and cold, thick with dust. It felt as if the room had been sealed off for decades, untouched by time. Jessica could almost taste the mustiness in the air, a stark contrast to the sterile environment she had expected. Moonlight filtered through the grimy windows, casting long, eerie shadows across the room. The pale light illuminated a scene that stopped her heart. Broken furniture lay scattered, and old medical equipment stood like silent sentinels, covered in a thick layer of dust. The ward was not empty. Jessica's eyes widened as she took in the sight before her. The beds, which she had assumed would be empty, were occupied. Spectral figures barely discernible in the dim light occupied the beds. Their forms were faint, almost transparent, but unmistakably human. They lay still as if in a deep, eternal sleep. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, their forms shimmering like heat haze. It was as if they were caught between two worlds, neither fully here nor entirely gone. The sight sent a chill down Jessica's spine. Jessica gasped, her hand flying to her mouth to stifle a scream. She could hardly believe what she was seeing. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the impossible scene before her. They were patients, but not the living kind. These were the souls of those who had passed away, their spirits lingering in the place where they had taken their last breaths. Each figure seemed to tell a story of pain, suffering, and unresolved endings. They were the ghosts of patients past, trapped within the walls of the hospital. Their presence was a haunting reminder of the lives that had once been, now reduced to mere shadows. Jessica felt a deep sense of sorrow and fear, knowing that these spirits were bound to this place, unable to find peace. Section 6. Unraveling the Past. As Jessica's eyes adjusted to the gloom, she noticed something else. The room was eerily silent, the kind of silence that makes your skin crawl. She could hear her own breathing, shallow and quick, echoing off the walls. The dim light cast long shadows, making the room feel even more oppressive. Medical equipment, old and sinister-looking, was scattered around the room. Rusted metal and cracked glass, remnants of a time long past, gave the place a haunted feel. Each piece seemed to tell a story of pain and suffering, of lives that had been touched by the cold hands of fate. There were charts, too, filled with hurried handwriting she couldn't decipher. The ink had faded over the years, but the urgency in the scribbles was still palpable. It was as if the doctors and nurses had been racing against time, trying to save lives in a place that seemed determined to claim them. She picked up a chart, her fingers tracing the faded ink. The paper was brittle, crumbling at the edges, a testament to the years it had spent in this forgotten place. She could almost feel the desperation of the people who had once held these charts, their hopes and fears etched into every line. The patient's name meant nothing to her, but the dates sent a chill down her spine. They were from decades ago, a time when the world was a different place. She wondered what had happened to these patients, whether they had found peace or if their spirits still lingered in this forsaken hospital. These patients had been admitted decades ago. Their stories were lost to time, buried under layers of dust and neglect. But as she stood there holding their charts, she felt a connection to them, a sense of responsibility to uncover the truth. Why were their files still here? Suddenly it hit her. This place wasn't just abandoned, it was forgotten, deliberately erased from memory. Someone had wanted to hide the truth, to bury the past so deep that no one would ever find it. This wasn't just an abandoned ward, it was a tomb, a place where secrets had been laid to rest. The walls seemed to whisper to her, telling tales of sorrow and regret, of lives cut short and dreams unfulfilled. It was a place of secrets, dark, terrible secrets that had been hidden away, waiting for someone to uncover them. Jessica felt a shiver run down her spine as she realized the enormity of what she had stumbled upon. A place where something terrible had happened. The air was thick with the weight of the past, and she knew that she couldn't leave without finding out the truth. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The past was about to be unraveled, and she was the one who would bring it to light. Section 7. Trapped. The realization struck Jessica like a physical blow. She needed to get out, now, but as she turned to leave, the door slammed shut. The sound echoed through the silent ward, bouncing off the walls. The padlock rattled, as if someone or something was trying to get in. Terror clawed at her throat. She was trapped. The ghostly figures began to close in, their forms solidifying with each passing moment. Their eyes burned with a cold, hungry light that made her blood run cold. Section 8. The Pact. A figure emerged from the spectral horde. He was tall and skeletal, his hospital gown hanging loosely from his emaciated frame. His eyes glowed with an unnatural intensity, and his voice, when he spoke, was a dry, rasping whisper. "We were abandoned," he hissed, his breath cold against her cheek. "Left to die. But you can help us. You can be our voice." He extended a hand, long and bony, towards her. "Join us," he whispered. "Become one with us. And together, we will make them remember."